Namaste, dear students. Welcome back. So I am here with next unit. So I am starting unit 5. So unit 5 is liquidation of companies. This is one of the most important lesson for your examination point of view and for your further studies. So you should learn this problems and solution part properly so that it will help you out for your professional course also, and it is also one of the easiest lesson. So if you learn this, you can score well in the examination also. So it is liquidation is all about closing of the company and preparing a financial statement, that is final statement of liquidation. So that is what you are going to learn in this unit. So let us understand what is liquidation and why it is necessary. Okay. So first thing in this lesson, you must know what do you mean by liquidation, or what exactly liquidation is stands for. So liquidation means, it is just in general sense we can say it is a closing down of the company or winding up of the company or closure of the business. So we can understand liquidation or winding up is a process. It is a process by which a company is dissolved. So liquidation is a process by which a company is closed or company's life brought to an end. So that is what we call it as a liquidation. As a student of corporate accounting or commerce, you must aware that a company is an artificial person. So that you should know that company is an artificial person and it is created by law. So it is created by law. So we can say that it is the company is an artificial person and is created in accordance with provisions of the Companies Act. So I said it is created by law, so that is nothing but according to the provisions of the Companies Act. Similarly, a company can be wound up, that is, liquidated in compliance with the legal provisions. Liquidation is a legal process by which the corporate life of a company is brought to an end. So it is a legal process where we are going to bring the life of the company to an end. So it is not only a process by which a company is getting closed, it is also a legal process. Why we call it as a legal process? Because you all know that company is an artificial person created by law according to the Companies Act. Okay, so this point you must remember. Clear? So liquidation is a lengthy procedure. It is not so simple you go and close down and lock the company and declare it has been closed. No, you cannot do like that. So it is one of the lengthy procedure in which the dissolution of company is carried out by realizing its assets and paying its debt. So that means before closing the company, we have to realize the assets. Realize is nothing but we have to find the value of the assets available with the company, or we have to sell the assets of the company and we have to encash those assets. Clear? So then we have to clear all the debts. We have to pay the debts of the company. So debts is nothing but the borrowings of the company, the investment made in the company, that we have to refund. So that has to be done. So we can say that out of that proceeds of realized assets, that means whatever the debts we are going to repay it, that is out of the money which we generate by selling the assets of the company, and distributing the balance, if any. So this point you should remember: distributing the balance, if any, to the members in proportion to their contribution. That is nothing but, so if any money left out after settling all, the debts, all the borrowings, so if any money left with the hands of the company, so that has to be distributed among the members. Members are nothing but shareholders of the company, according to their proportions or their contribution. By liquidation, the life of a company will be brought to an end. So the company will be brought to an end. The company will get closed. That is with the liquidation process. So to make it simple, so in this slide I have brought up like three major points I have come up with, so which you can easily remember that. So the first point clearly says a company is an artificial person. It is created by law, and therefore law alone can dissolve it. That means what I explained, it is a legal process of closing down, because the law alone can dissolve it. The law only can close down the company. On dissolution of the company, company's name shall be struck off by the registrar from the registrar of companies, and he shall also get the fact published in the official gazette. So in the gazette it has to be published about the company dissolution, so that has to be done by registrar of the companies. So, in a summarized form, we can say liquidation or winding up of a company is a process by which dissolution of a company is brought about and its property administered for the benefit of its creditors and members. So, whatever the borrowings, that is, we have to settle all the debts. So, after that, if any left out, that should be distributed among the members of that company. So that is the basic meaning of liquidation. Next point is an administrator called a liquidator is appointed, and he takes over the control of the company, collects its assets, pays its debts, and finally distributes the surplus among the members in accordance to their rights. So there is a person called administrator called a liquidator. So now you might have doubt that who is a liquidator. Liquidator is a legal representative of the company. He is the legal representative of the company. Usually he will be appointed by court. So that is why we call him as a legal representative of the company. So who takes over the control of the company, complete control of the company will be in his hands. So he will be collecting all the assets of the company, and after realizing those assets, so he pays the debts of the company. So he pays all the debts of the company. After repayment of debts, if any left, if any surplus money left, that surplus is distributed among the shareholders in accordance to their rights. So that is according to their proportionate shares in the company. So that money will be distributed, and for this conduct of duty, for his duty, so the company has to pay him a fees. So that is, we call it as a liquidator's remuneration. So he will get a remuneration for the duty he is going to execute on behalf of the company. So thus liquidation or winding up ultimately leads to dissolution of the company. So that is nothing but close down of the company or closure of the company. So that is the ultimate meaning of liquidation. Next we are going to understand the features of liquidation. So the major feature which you must know and you must understand, that any company can be liquidated legally. So it might be any company, so that can be brought to an end legally. So that is the most important point. Whether it is immaterial, the company is a solvent or insolvent, whether the company is under profit or under loss, so that is not important. So that is not required to dissolve a company or to close down a company. So this, what exactly meaning of this? Even the companies which are under profit may be liquidated. If the company is earning good profit, that kind of companies also can brought to an end. So the companies can get closed. Once the liquidation takes place, that company will be closed down forever. So once the liquidation is decided, so the company will be closed down forever. So that you should know. During the process of liquidation, all the assets of company are realized. So every assets will be valuated. So final amount will be finalized. So then we are going to realize. Out of those realized assets, claims of creditors are discharged. All the debts, all the payments were made out of those amount which we got realized out of the liquidation. The balance, if any, left out, so that will be distributed among the members of the company in proportion to their contributions, so in proportion to their investments. In liquidation process, the role of a person, the liquidator, I said, is a legal representative, clear, of the company. So the role of that person, the liquidator, is very, very important, because the person with whom the job of liquidation is entrusted, so one who takes care of all the process of liquidation, is exactly, we call him as a liquidator. So the job of liquidator is to realize the assets and settle claims of the creditors and other liabilities. The major role of a liquidator is to evaluate the assets of the company, and realizing those assets, the claims, the settlements has to be made to the creditors and other liabilities. So next we are going to understand the modes of liquidation. Let us understand the modes of winding up. So number one, compulsory winding up. Number two, voluntary winding up. Number three, winding up under the supervision of the court. These three modes we can wind up the company. So we are going to understand in brief. Later I am going to explain one by one in detail. So first, what is compulsory winding up? So according to the section 433, winding up by court. So the court will give an order to close down the company. So that is what we call it as a winding up by a court, or compulsory winding up under section 433. See, this mode of liquidation takes place when, so the situation when the company passes a special resolution that it is going to close, or it makes default in delivering the statutory report to the registrar. If there is any legal compliances is not completed by the company, so which the statutory report has to be given to the registrar. So in such a case, or in holding the statutory meeting, so it can hold a statutory meeting and it can declare its liquidation. It does not commence business within a year from its incorporation, or suspends its business for the whole year. If the company have not started its business after the incorporation of the company for 1 year or the business for the whole year. So in such cases, so we are going to consider, even we can say one more point, that is unable to pay its debt. If the company is unable to pay its debt, that is also we consider. Okay, so this is about compulsory winding up. And voluntary winding up, so that it is the company is owned up at the instance of either the member or creditors. So such winding up is known as voluntary winding up. So where the company itself, the creditors or the members of the company, they decides to wind up the company. So in such a case, the company will get closed. So next is winding up by supervision of the court. So when company passes a resolution for voluntary winding up, company itself passes a resolution for voluntary winding up, and the court will application made by a creditor, so that pass an order to that effect. So when company itself requesting a court, so in such a case, so this winding up under the supervision of the court takes place. So this is the modes of winding up. So now let us understand one by one in detail what kind of compulsory winding up means, what in detail, and what is voluntary winding up in detail, and winding up under the supervision of the court in detail. Compulsory winding up. Winding up of a company by an order of the court is known as compulsory winding up. According to Section 433 of Companies Act, the court may order compulsory winding up under the following circumstances. So the court will order under the following situations. So that is, number one, if the company commits default in holding the statutory meeting, if the company is commits default, so company is not conducting any kind of statutory meeting, so the company is not meeting the statutory compliances which is set by the Companies Act. If the company fails to commence business within a year of its incorporation or suspense of business for a year, if the company does not started only, so it has been incorporated 1 year ago, but it is not yet started, in such a case the company will be legally closed down. And even if suspends the business for a year, see, if the company is not conducting a business continuously for a year, so in such a case this compulsory winding up might takes place. If the company is unable to pay its debt, so this is another most important point which I've already said. So if company fails to pay all its borrowed funds, so that is creditors, debenture money, so external loans from the bank, if they are unable to pay it back, then the company has to close down. If the court is of the opinion that it is just an equitable that the company should be owned up, if court opinion is said to be it has to be closed, so then it has to close down. So these are the major important point under compulsory winding up which you should remember. So next we are further moving for voluntary winding up. Voluntary winding up, a winding up without any intervention of the court, it is termed as voluntary winding up. Be clear, even though it is a legal process of closing down, liquidation is the legal process of closing down the company, but when it is done without the intervention of court, so that is said to be voluntary winding up. According to Section 489 of the Companies Act, a company may be wound up voluntarily by passing an ordinary resolution in general meeting or by passing a special resolution to wind up voluntarily for any reason whatsoever. So if company passes, whether it is ordinary resolution or a special resolution, so by considering that resolution, the company can close down without the intervention of the court. That is what we call it as a voluntary winding up. See, in detail, if you want to understand, voluntary winding up can be understood under section 484 521, 484 to 524, under section the Companies Act we can understand. So when company is wound up at the instance of either the members or creditors, such winding up is known as voluntary winding up. So there are two kinds of voluntary winding up. Number one is members voluntary winding up. What is this members voluntary winding up? When the members of the company decide to wind up despite its sound financial conditions, the winding up is termed as members voluntary winding up. This mode of liquidation takes place when a declaration of company's solvency verified by an affidavit is delivered to the registrar by its director. See, it is very simple. Members voluntary winding up means members of the company decides to wind up. So whether the financially the company is good or bad, so that members of the company decides to close down the company. So if they decides to close down, automatically they'll pass a resolution, ordinary resolution in the general body meeting that they are closing down the company. So with that resolution it can get closed. Or creditors voluntary winding up. This is second type under voluntary winding up. When the declaration of solvency is not made while the delivery was made to the registrar, then it is called creditors voluntary winding up. In this case also, a copy of resolution passed by the creditors presided over by one of its directors has to be sent to the registrar. See, it is very simple. A declaration of solvency is not made while the delivery was made to the registrar. So that means under this special resolution, here the declaration solvency will be done. So it is called as creditors voluntary winding up. Okay, so this is about voluntary winding up of the company. Winding up under the supervision of the court. According to section 522 of Companies Act, at any time after the company has passed a resolution for voluntary winding up, the court may make an order that the voluntary winding up shall continue subject to supervision of the court. So once the resolution is received, so once the company, court receives the resolution from the company, so then court can give at any point of time, the court can give the supervision. Under the court supervision, winding ups takes place. So to make you understand in simple thing, winding up subject to supervision of the court, section starts from 522 till 527. When a company passes a resolution for voluntary winding up and court, upon an application made by a creditor, pass an order to that effect. Such an order is passes by the court if the situation warrants. The whole procedure of winding up is carried out under the supervision of the court by appointing its own official liquidator. So once the company receives the resolution from the company, once the court receives a resolution from the company, so that company willing to liquidate, so automatically the court passes an order for liquidation at any point of time. So here you have to understand, when winding up is carried out, the shareholders are called contributories. Shareholders are called contributories. So you must understand this. Under section 428 defines a contributory as every person liable to contribute to the assets of a company in the event of its being wound up, and includes any holder of shares which are fully paid up. So contributories are those, any person or every person who has contributed for the assets of the company. So when it is getting closed, it includes any holder of shares which are fully paid up. The shareholders who have paid the complete money of the face value of those shares. This term includes the holder of fully paid shares. It also means any person liable to contribute to the assets of a company. So that means who have contributed for the assets of the company. It includes all present and all past shareholders who have ceased to be members within 1 year immediately preceding the commencement of the process of liquidation. So that means it is very clear. So the person might be present or he might be past, but who has contributed for the assets of the company. Clear? So they must get the compensation. So from the commencement of the process of liquidation. So the contributories are categorized into two kinds. So number one, that includes the present shareholders, and number two includes the past shareholders. So the liability of the contributories is subject to the following. So we cannot call everyone as a contributories. So we call them as a contributories by the following points. Contributories, a past member is not liable to contribute unless the present members have been called upon to the contribute to the fullest extent to which they can so be asked. So that means the past members is not liable to contribute. So if the present members, they have already called, so they should call, contribute. So to the full extent, that means partly paid up shares should be, converted into fully paid up shares. Okay, a contributory is not liable to pay more than the unpaid value of shares held by him. So contributory should pay maximum extent to the face value of the shares, or the number of shares held by them and the face value of the shares. So that much they should contribute. A past member who has ceased to be a member for at least 1 year before the commencement of liquidation is not liable to contribute. So this point you should remember. A past member is not liable in respect of any liability or debt of the company incurred after he ceased to be a member. So this is also one of the important point. So you have to understand here, a shareholder cannot set off any debt due to him from the company against calls made on him for being unpaid capital. He must first pay the calls. His claims is to be considered at par with other members and not with creditors. So here you have to understand, if a shareholder has lent some money to the company, so he cannot adjust that lended money with the share unpaid money of share call money. First he has to settle the call money of the shares, so then he should claims the debt which has he should get from the company has to apply. Okay, so this is about the contributories. So we will stop here. So in the next video, we are going to learn about order of repayments. So that is debts clearance, how after realizing the assets, to whom we are going to pay first, pay second. So that order we are going to understand in the coming video. That is order of payments we are going to understand in the next coming class. And also we are going to understand what is going to be a statement of affairs, so in the coming class. Thank you, stay safe, take care, bye bye.